This week, they were talking about the fact that we had Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore. We have the two astronauts here, two astronauts that went to the space station in June 2024. So they had spacewalk together this week. So we're going to talk about their spacewalk, and then we're going to talk about as well why they are at the space station, first of all. Second, when they're planning to come back. Because this week they mentioned that their return that was planned for February of this year was been pushed to March. And we're going to see what are some of the implications about that. So if you look at the Expedition 72, let's see, I need a little bit more light. There you go. See if I can make it bigger for you. Excellent. So here are the astronauts, the active mission Expedition 72. We have here Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore right here. And then we have with the others. So Suni Williams is the commander. We have Butch Wilmore, the flight engineer. We also have Alexei Ovchinin as flight engineers. Oh, we have quite a few flight engineers. We have Ivan Wagner, we have Don Petit, and we have Nick Hague, as well as Alexander Gorbanov. Oh, they're all flight engineers, not how I look at it. Perfect. So here what we notice is that we have a crew that is working on the space station. So let's see if I can, so here is this idea. So we had Boeing that sent in June 5th. We have two astronauts that went into space. Let's see if I can make it bigger. So what happened, we had in June with the Starliner from Boeing, Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore that went to the space station. But what's interesting here is that they noticed that in order to make sure that their return would be safe, they decided that the Starliner had to be worked on, and they had to study some of the malfunction that happened to it. And I'm sure that Boeing is working on making the next flight much better. But what happened here is that you had basically two stranded astronauts. So we had two astronauts that were planning to go to the space station for about 8 days. That was great. Now, what happened, we already had the crew on the space station. And what happened here is that they realized that they could not bring right away Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore, because you can't call Uber, say, hey, can you come and pick us? So we need to look at the planned flights to the space station to return them. So what they had to do, we had the NASA SpaceX Crew 9, and they had to do something different. They had planned to bring 4 more astronauts to the space station to bring back the 4 astronauts that were already on the space station for about 6 months. But because we have the 2 astronauts from Boeing that had to come back, we only sent 2 astronauts with the SpaceX Crew 9 by sending 2 astronauts only when their shift, so when their stay in the space station will be complete, then the 4 of them will be able to come back to Earth. Because keep in mind that you need 2 seats to bring these 2. Now what happened though is that you could see, well, so they got there in September, so October, November, December, January, February. So their plan was to be there 5 or 6 months. That's easy. But here we have Suni and Butch that had been on the space station since June, so July, August, September. So Suni and Butch were already on the space station for 3 months already. So what's happening here is that we have 2 astronauts that had thought through Boeing to go for 8 days. Now, as of February, for the return of the next of these 2 astronauts and the shift change with the next 4 astronauts, we have them from 8 days to be in space for 8 months. So there's been a lot of changes, things they had to do, making sure their health is good. But the amazing thing this week, so I have had some pictures. So here are some pictures when they left, just before they left. Here, looking great. They were planning to go for 8 days. And this week, they worked on a spacewalk. So it was, I think, their 7th or, so let's see. It was Suni's 9th career spacewalk. And here we have Butch Wilmore with his 5th career spacewalk. So here we have 2 astronauts that were supposed to go for 8 days, will be there for 8 months. But since they're there, may as well be useful. And they worked on some science project and maintenance for the space station. Let's see if I have another photo here that is interesting. Okay, so what is the implication of them being in the space station? So the current shift, SpaceX Crew 9, so the Expedition 72, they were planning to come back in February. So a 5-month stay for the current astronauts. But because Suni and Butch were already in the space station, now they've been there for 8 months, and this week they postponed their return. I believe they have it here. So here they postponed it to the spring of 2025. So some places they say it's March 2025, but here it might be even later than March 2025. So we'll see what it is right here, because the spring starts at the end of March. So we'll see how it goes. Now, what's interesting though is that as they are spending more and more time on the space station, my next question was, what is the record holders for staying on the space station the longest? So here, I have this one here. So we have Frank Rubio that has been the longest stretch in one time was 371 days, so a whole year. We have Mark Van de Hey, Scott Kelly, Christina Koch, we have Peggy Whitson, we have Andrew Morgan, we had here a crew with Janet Epps, Matthew Dominic, and Mike Barat, and Michael Lopez Elebrea. Now, what's interesting with Peggy Whitson here, she stayed here for 289 days. But I also looked at the record holders of how much time they spent in space, and she holds the record with a total of 675 days spent in space. Isn't it amazing? Good. Now, we have here the top 10 record holder for the astronaut. But if you are thinking that the end of March is their return, that means it's 9 months in space. So that brings us to 270 days into space. So that means that they will be, let's see, longer in space in one trip above the last 4 right here. So that means that we have Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore that will be in the top 10 holder, a record holder of being in space the longer stretch. The next question here is, when will they come back to Earth? And that's a good question. So I have here 270 days. If there's a little bit of postponement, we'll see what happens. Now, keep in mind that if you look at the other 2 astronauts here, they came to the space station in September. I think it was September 23rd. So what happened here is that they will be in space for 5-6 months. Now, you have to keep that. You have to add 3 months to their stay. So staying in space has its toll on the body. So we are all hoping that the crew, when they come back in the spring 2025, will be healthy. And that's my hope for the crew, and hoping for success for all of them. And when they come back, to be able to recuperate and feel and get better at dealing with the Earth's gravity. That's our second topic today. If it happens that you enjoy space news, I'm going to put here a link to another video that I did a few weeks ago, and I'll see you there.